Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is retired Nassau County Police Department Lieutenant Michael Gould. Lieutenant, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Brittany. Thanks for having me.
A lot of breaking news over the weekend, and I would love to get your perspective on it. Former President Donald Trump survived another assassination attempt against him, this time at his West Palm Beach golf club. This comes 2 months after he survived the first assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. So as a former law enforcement officer, what's your reaction to the news?
Yeah, so Brittany, unfortunately, this doesn't surprise me. It's obviously disturbing, but our culture, there's been political violence since Abraham Lincoln was shot. I witnessed John F. Kennedy being assassinated in 1963, Martin Luther King, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan. So it's not something that surprises me. Sometimes it surprises me that it doesn't happen more often, to be frank with you. But yeah, I was very critical of the Butler, Pennsylvania. I was very critical of the Secret Service this morning because we're kind of literally Monday morning quarterbacking. I'm holding off on my criticism of the Secret Service at the moment, knowing that it was successful by definition, meaning the person was captured, the president didn't get hurt, and so forth.
I was excited to speak with you on this specific topic because you actually have experience in security detail. You supervised the security detail for two presidents, former President George W. Bush as well as Jimmy Carter. So can you give us the inside scoop of what happens exactly in the security detail?
Right. So for clarity, I didn't supervise it, but I participated in it, and I've worked regularly with the Secret Service, the FBI, local, other law enforcement agencies. So there's a lot to it. A detail like this, a golf course, is 200 acres, 150, 200 acres, and it's a moving kind of detail, meaning that the president's always on the move, right? He's hit literally by the nature of golf. They follow the golf ball around. So it's very sporadic. It's hard to plan. You can't interfere with the president. If he wants to play golf, he plays golf. So when you plan these things, and as I said, this might have been began to be organized a day or two ago. So it's very sporadic. It's not something where you have 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, or a year, like the national conventions that we have a year or so to plan for. So this is a very soft target, meaning it's very porous. There's the tree lines, there's shrubbery, there's trees. There was a failure for certain, but in the fact that this person got as close to the fence line as he did.
How did that failure happen? I think that's the question on everyone's mind, especially as we're still reeling from 9 weeks ago when the former president was shot. So how did this happen just 2 months later?
Right. So Brittany, so the last 2 months ago, that was a complete debacle, meaning that there should have been somebody on the roof. My first detail with President Carter I was assigned as a rookie cop to the roof of a building, a hangar. So you don't have to be a specialist. You just have to have a set of eyes and a walkie-talkie, and you can deter things. So in this case, the failure was, I think law enforcement, we all have a habit of becoming complacent because these things don't happen that frequently. It's like a bank alarm going off. It goes off 99 times and it's faulty. The 100th time, you're not going to take it as serious. So there was complacency here, but in my view, there should have been roaming canine units, a team of uniformed canine cops, just walking up and down that fence line. The dogs would detect the odor of a human being instantaneously. That's their value. They smell human odor. So there was a failure on the perimeter. The Secret Service agent, amazing. He rose to the occasion. He shot. So there's no question. But there was a level of complacency as far as I'm concerned.
The Palm Beach County Sheriff said that if Trump was the sitting president, the course would have been surrounded. But given what we know about how he survived an assassination attempt just a few months ago, he is a presidential candidate. Do you think his security needs to be even more beefed up?
Yeah, you know what, Brittany? I heard the sheriff, and he's correct in that regard because Secret Service assets are given depending on your status, which is kind of ridiculous. It should be assigned by the threat level. So we know that these two candidates, both Vice President Harris and Trump, they're targets. So it can't be by their status that once he becomes president, we can save your life. It has to go by the threat level as it is now. They didn't give Robert F. Kennedy a Secret Service protection. They made that decision. That could have ended in tragedy. So, yeah, that's a ridiculous, in my view. Congress, Secret Service has to reevaluate that. You provide the assets that are necessary regardless of who it is and what their status is.
I mean, to your point, the special agent for the Secret Service said that, quote, the threat level is high and we live in danger times. So this really raises the question of how to keep the president safe, or if he is safe. So what are the answers to either of those questions?
Yeah, well, it's like threading a needle. It's not. Look, number one, we as citizens, we think we're protected by law enforcement, but we're not in reality. If you go to the mall today, you're as vulnerable as some kind of crazy wingnut person. We know that. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what part of the country you are. Law enforcement, sadly, can't protect everybody. So I think there'll be a combination. I think that if they were a little bit more proactive, the Secret Service, meaning the detail, using the local resources, they've been doing this for many, many years. I mean, they protected presidents in war zones, and so they're very good at it. But I think that they just got to step up their game a little bit. As I said, New York City, where I am, I mean, these Secret Service, these types of dignitary protection details have been going on forever. This is nothing new. But in this case, I think there was a little bit of complacency. You have to be always proactive. They should have had more resources. As I said, I'm biased towards our police dogs because I know their value to law enforcement. So I would have had 1, 2, or 3 of them walking the perimeter of that fence, either outside or inside. And that person would not be there because the dogs would have alerted the handler to him right away.
Lieutenant, from your law enforcement perspective, paired with your experience with security detail, what do you think then is missing from this conversation?
Unfortunately, as I said, society is changing. Mental illness is part of the fabric of our country now. But it has been, as I said, whoever assassinates the president, whether it was Lincoln, Kennedy, has to have some type of mental illness present. This person, what does make it more difficult is social media. How this person even knew that President or candidate Trump was even at the golf course. This thing, so social media is a big problem. Their ability to communicate, their ability to move around so rapidly now. We live in a society where you can just get from one place to another very simply. But mental illness is a huge problem, I think, and we've kind of gotten desensitized to it. I know in New York City, we know mental illness when we see it. Nowadays, we kind of just navigate around it, and we're afraid to even recognize it as what it is. So this happened with the school shooting in Georgia. It's the same kind of thing. But with presidential details, I thought they learned an important lesson 2 months ago. But apparently this was another little flaw in the system.
Looking at these 2 assassination attempts in one summer, do you think former President Trump is safe right now?
Well, as I said, nobody's 100% safe. So if somebody is hell-bent on killing anyone, they can do it. I think that he should maybe just take into consideration the job that the Secret Service has to protect him. So maybe golf has to take a little back seat for now, or play golf on a secure military base. Back in the day, all presidents have played golf. But if they do it at Andrews Air Force Base, for example, that's already got a secure perimeter where people aren't allowed in and it's out. So I just don't think that his lifestyle of casually bouncing around Palm Beach and West Palm Beach, it puts a terrible, terrible strain on all law enforcement, Secret Service, all the local law enforcement officers and agencies.
Lieutenant Michael Gould, thank you so much for the conversation. I appreciate your insight. You're welcome back anytime.
Thanks, Brittany. It was a pleasure.